Hi. So, what are we going to talk about today?
So today we want to talk about different healing methods through herbal remedies. So we will mention homeopathy, we will mention biodynamic agriculture, which is not a healing method, but this is something that is also included in preparation of these substances. We will talk about specifically about a company called Veleda. We will talk about essential oils and Swiss bitters. But we will split this in two parts. So in this part, we will talk about homeopathy specifically.
Okay. So what is that exactly is homeopathy, and can you tell a little bit of history behind homeopathy?
Yes. So homeopathy was basically as an idea developed by Samuel Haneman. And he had this idea, well, basically it stems from philosophy that like treats the like. So he had an idea that if you have, let's say, a headache, then you have to take a substance which will, in large doses, cause headache, but you will have to dilute this substance in such minute quantities. I mean, it has to be diluted in large quantities of water, but it has to be in such minute quantities that it will heal your headache. But I will let you know later on as to why he thought it would work. I can actually say it right now because this is in the history of it. So he believed that if you've got a disease, it means that your spirit is out of tune. So in order for it to become tuned back or balanced, you need to take of that substance that will basically bring it up back in tune. And those substances were found in plants, animals, and minerals. So they would extract and dilute them in large quantities of water, but there is a specific process.
Okay, that's very interesting. And where does this philosophies or knowledge comes from? How did he know how to do it? Because as far as I know, this doesn't sound to be scientific for me.
Yes, it's not scientific, and actually a lot of studies that have been done and that have been successful were done by homeopaths themselves, which obviously makes them unreliable. So what he thought, as I said, is that every single plant has their own spirit, and that spirit is a life force. So there's another word for it: life force, chi, or universal energy. And it's believed to be, by Hindus basically, it's believed to be God itself. So God is not personal, it's like a substance that permeates everything and it's in everything. And Haneman was a very basically in love with Hinduism, but there is more to it, because he was not only kind of into Hinduism, but he was an occultist himself. He was a clairvoyant, which means that he was talking to spirits, and he was getting instructions as to these healing methods through the spirits. And knowing that, we as Christians are not supposed to contact any spirits or spirit guides for this kind of information, automatically should ring the alarm bell and say, this is something you shouldn't be engaged with. So every time that we are looking at a healing method, we should always ask ourselves, who is behind this theory? Because this is not scientifically proven. So where did he get this idea from? We should always go back to their ideas, because they are not something that you can scientifically prove. It's just a philosophy, an idea. But the problem with it is that it works for some people, and we will probably talk about it. Why?
Yeah.
Right.
So you mentioned that Samuel Haneman also he was a Freemason. What does it mean?
Well, he was a Freemason, but I'm not sure if it ties in any way with homeopathy. It's just something that on a higher levels we know that they worship Lucifer, I don't know how far he was in all of this, but he was also he was taught by a powerful medium called Emanuel Swedenborg, and he was influenced by occultist Paracelsus and Mesmer. And an interesting quote from his textbook on homeopathy, which is called Organon, where he confessed that there are similarities between homeopathy and mesmerism, which is hypnotism. So the word that we use now, they used before, we use now hypnotism, and before they were saying it's mesmerism from the guy Mesmer.
Where exactly do you see the similarity between hypnotism and homeopathy?
So that's what he's saying. I find it yet necessary to allude here to animal magnetism, as it is termed, or rather mesmerism. It is a marvelous, priceless gift of God, by means of which the strong will of a well-intentioned person upon a sick one, by contact, and even without this, and even at some distance, can bring the vital energy of the healthy mesmerizer, endowed with this power, into another personal dynamically. The above-mentioned methods of practicing mesmerism depend upon an influx of more or less vital force into the patient. So he's saying here that basically the person who is affecting you, who is a hypnotism affecting you, he is like a well-meaning person, so he wishes you well, and he's trying to bring some kind of a balance into your life, the same way these plants, even though they might not contain even any molecules of the actual plant itself.
Because it was so diluted.
Yes, because it was so diluted, they kind of influence you still. But I didn't mention the fact that not only they are diluting it in such large quantities, but they say that the more you dilute it, the more potent the actual tincture becomes. And this is none other than mysticism, because it cannot be so. With herbology, we take something that is more potent, which is more, having more extract of the plant to treat something. Yeah. But here on the other way, it's completely, it's opposite. Basically, yes. I will read this quote. Homeopaths have found that the medicines do not work if they are simply diluted in vast amounts of liquid, nor do the medicines work if they are only vigorously shaken. It is the combined process of dilution and vigorous shaking that makes the medicine effective. Does it really sound like something scientific? It has to be.
It doesn't sound very logical, but still some people see results. So how come they see results from homeopathy if it doesn't make any sense?
That's a very good question. So I have to mention that there is no such thing as panacea. It's good to believe that, the more tinctures you buy, the more money you spend, then, you can heal yourself through these things because it's so easy to do. But people are not very interested in the idea of actually treating themselves with, lifestyle changes or going to God to ask for help, and because it's just so hard, apparently. Yeah. But sometimes when we believe something will work, it just works because of our belief. This is called placebo effect. So what they found is that there was a review, there was an article written called Homeopathy, What Does the Best Evidence Tell Us?, which reviewed several studies done on homeopathy and concluded that current reviews of studies of homeopathy do not show that homeopathic medicines have effects beyond placebo, which means that believing it will cure them make people feel better, not the homeopathic remedy itself. So the placebo effect, that's one thing. Another thing, which is a dangerous side, is that, when Satan presents something to you, he will never present as an empty pill, basically. He always gives something with it. So he will give you the healing, but he always asks something back. So you cannot become, you don't receive gifts from Satan. So if this is coming from a spirit world, he was, basically guided by these spirits to create this system. There are spirits attached to it. So when you use this kind of treatment method, you will paint something else. We don't know what exactly, but there was a case with one girl who was treated by her mom with homeopathic remedy, and this girl started hearing the conversations that were happening a few floors away from her. She could not possibly have heard it, but she would tell mom, "Oh, mommy, I don't want to go there." And mommy was like, how did you know we were talking about this? She was not present with them. So she started to, obviously her mom was concerned, and then eventually when she heard a presentation about homeopathy, just like what we're doing right now, she just stood up, ran from this presentation, and she prayed and asked God to forgive her for using homeopathy, and the girl's gift was gone.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's good.
So that's what is dangerous, that Satan is,
So people pretty much don't know what they're getting into when they get homeopathic remedy. So they think it's something what can help them, but in return they will pay back with something.
Yes, because even though you have this kind of a gift, but then Satan is ruling, your life. There are, these things attached to it.
I want to go a couple things which you mentioned before, because today I was watching a video on homeopathy, and interesting enough, because the founder of homeopathy was not just giving them pills or tincture, he also was giving a list of rules which they cannot do. So it's affecting the lifestyle of that person. Like you say, why people don't just change lifestyle. But nowadays, nobody is giving the list of the things you cannot do today. They just buy tincture or a pill. But that time the rules were like, do not drink coffee, do not drink alcohol, tea, even do not watch pornography and things like that. Yes, I was very impressed with it. But maybe, also not eating meat. And I was thinking maybe just changing these things already could improve their health, right?
Yes.
Not even the homeopathy itself.
Exactly.
And plus, he was like saying that if you do it, then you'll get better. But that time also there were such treatments as blood shedding, and things like that. So they were doing more harm rather than helping people. And the thing is that when he started to introduce homeopathy, the hospitals were getting more empty, but not because the treatment worked, just because they're not doing harm like shedding blood. You can just die from losing your own blood.
It's very interesting, because this is the reason why Samuel Haneman was looking for different alternative methods of treatment, because he was disappointed with the way the medical system worked. Like you were saying, letting the blood out of person's veins and stuff like that. So, and yes, there are good things introduced with it, but we don't want 10% poison and 90% good food. We want all of it to be good. So another thing I wanted to mention is there was one author who said, homeopathy is dangerous. It's quite contrary to the teaching of the Word of God. It willingly favors healing through substances made dynamic, that is to say, charged with occult forces. Homeopathic treatment is the fruit of a philosophy and religion that are at the same time Hinduistic, pantheistic, and esoteric. So as you see that, the things are charged with occult forces. That's just what we were mentioning. And the religion stems from pantheism. Pantheism is what I said, a belief that God is in everything. But God is not a personal being like what we believe, Father and Son and Holy Spirit. God is basically a substance, is energy, chi.
Yes. So could you say that when we approve or start taking homeopathy will pretty much participate in a religion. Could you say such thing? Or that we support it?
Basically,
Or we believe in it.
Not with our minds.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you've mentioned this. There was a quote. Basically, it says, a man's belief in his origin has great influence in his choice of healing methods. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're doing it unconsciously. You just think that homeopathy is a plant treatment. You're treating yourself with good things. But the person who has developed it because he believes that these things contain some kind of a power.
Yeah.
And the way how power is basically, what is it called, the right way, is moved, why delusion works in their minds.
Yeah.
Is because it contains the imprint of the original, they call it mother tincture, which is the actual extract, yes, the heavy stuff. And they say it contains the water, carries a memory, and contains the signature or an imprint of that mother tincture. This is also, it's mystical, because this is not something that
our ocean has to have imprint from the previous things which was used before. Imagine that, absorbing all the information like around you.
Yeah.
So I can't just imagine that. It just also doesn't sound logical to me.
It's not logical for us, but it apparently is logical for them that it works. But you see, people, that's the dangerous thing. When it works, people think that, okay, this is a good stuff, but it's not necessarily good stuff. It's just what works behind it.
The thing is, nobody can explain how it works. Like when I was working in the health shop, and I was working with supplements, vitamins, homeopathy as well, and I had a presentation on homeopathy tinctures. I've asked the guy who was the face of the company, how does it work? And he said, well, this is beyond my line. So this is my knowledge, and this is step beyond my knowledge.
Yeah.
I have no idea how exactly it works, but for some people it does help. So it's interesting because for any other vitamins and other supplements, there's actually a biochemical background how it works. So you know that this is specific ingredient which is helping you for that because it has this biochemical property to soothe your throat or to help your digestion and things like that. Like vitamin B, we know it's good for our nerves, our nervous system. But for tinctures specifically from homeopathy, it didn't have any information on any biochemical background.
Because interestingly, that you would not take you wouldn't want to take the substance in its high potency, meaning like the extract, because as I said, he tested whether this substance would cause you the disease you're trying to cure. So the headache, the substance will have to cause you a headache, but you wouldn't want the high potency because you don't want the poisonous effect on your body.
You don't want your disease to
even aggravate more. So they are using like treats like, which is an absurd, way of thinking.
Exactly.
And Haneman himself did not have any idea about biochemical properties of the plants. Mm-hmm. You see, this is stemming from this kind of philosophy and from the spirit world, not from the godly way of healing. And we will move onto the other side of the healing methods where things contain biochemical properties, but they have been manipulated on the background when they were prepared, and therefore they are still charged with the occult forces. Mm-hmm. But I want to, for the ending of this presentation, I want to read this quote. Those who give themselves up to the sorcery of Satan may boast of great benefit received thereby. But does this prove their cause to be wise or safe? What if life should be prolonged? What if temporal gain should be secured? Will it pay in the end to disregard the will of God? All such apparent gain will prove at last an irrecoverable loss. We cannot with impunity, which means without the consequences, break down a single barrier which God has erected to guard his people from Satan's power. God has said to us we should not be guided by the spirits, and we will read it in the second presentation in Leviticus, that do not consult with familiar spirits.
Yeah.
This is what these founders or this founder was doing, consulting spirit world to find out how to treat through the
Homeopathy. You would never think that something what could be used as medicine could be involved into occultism and could affect your spiritual life. So some people might be seeking questions why their spiritual life is going down the road, downward. So this might be one of the answers. And thank you for your useful and precious information. In next video, we're going to talk about biodynamic farming, and then Veleda, which is very famous homeopathic brand, aromatherapy, essential oils, and Swiss bitters.
I will correct you because Veleda, I'm not sure if they do homeopathy, but we will talk about the phytotherapy, the other side, not the homeopathic side of it. I'm not sure if they do homeopathy, but we should mention to our viewers that the important thing is, when you found this information, and if God is convicting you that what you have been using, and maybe the reason why you're having trouble with your spiritual life is this, or even if you don't know, go on your knees and pray to God and ask for guidance, because this is a very serious matter. Some people might not be able to read Bible because they are spiritually bound.
Yes.
Satan is using so many things, and nowadays we just won't stop making videos because there's one more thing. Bible would be like this much.
You won't have a lifetime. You will need a lifetime to read just whole Bible.
Exactly. We just need simple principles, and we go back to these principles, say, is this what the Bible is teaching us?
Is this godly?
Is this the godly way of healing? And we found with homeopathy it's not. So yes, we will see each other in the second part of the video.